pedigree, perception, provenance, those three P's that I feel like tends to build trust a little bit more astutely than kind of some of the other factors that you're not cognizant of.
Okay, you said that really quickly. Pedigree?
Pedigree, provenance, and I already forgot. I was just so in the moment.
I love that. That was so good.
Oh my God. I was so in the moment. I don't even know what I said like 30 seconds ago.
You were in flow.
I was completely 100% dialed in, but whatever it was, cool. Sounded good in the moment.
All right, we're rolling. Hey guys. Any support to grow this podcast would mean the world to us. We spend a lot of time and energy to make these conversations accessible to help as many of our listeners, that is you, to get value. So if you like this episode or previous episodes and are happy to support us and the show, if you can share it with your friends, your partners, anyone in your network who may also learn from it, that's the first thing you can do. The second thing you can do is rate it 5 stars and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. I know all podcasters ask you to do this, but this is the one way to help us reach more listeners that we can impact, because that is what we are here to do. So welcome to Emergence Now, where this week, we're going to delve into the intricate world of entrepreneurship. So today we're unraveling the crucial yet often underestimated element of building really strong, robust co-founder relationships, which is a fundamental part of any successful business venture. So entrepreneurship is akin to scaling Mount Everest. It's a rewarding yet very challenging journey, right? That often keeps us lost in our own thoughts. So mindset plays a pivotal role in navigating this landscape. And many entrepreneurs confess that their co-founders were the anchor that kept them from giving up. However, I've also heard the other side of the coin. So did you know that, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's north of 50% of organizations collapse due to conflicts between founders. But here's the thing. It doesn't have to be that way. So it's amazing to have someone by your side, right? But someone by your side who truly, truly understands you in a way that no one does, right? And it's in this process that you uncover the real personalities, the quirks, the traits. So we're here to guide you through the critical aspects that you need to know or align on, preparing you for the inevitable challenges along this journey. So reflecting on our own experience, I felt that this was a really reflective episode that we started really thinking about for the last couple of weeks. So discovering compatibility, learning from differences, and just understanding how to navigate the highs and lows together, right? So there are many pillars today that hold that foundation that we're going to be sharing with you today, from being a strong and resilient, or for you to have that strong and resilient partnership or relationship. So Nikos, so this episode is something that, is something that you've been thinking a lot about, right? In a lot of our conversations, co-founder relationships, because you have a few co-founders at the moment, right? On this journey that you've been on.
Yeah, absolutely. And in two separate businesses as well, right? I have my AI company and I have Dial In. So what I was thinking about while you were talking about and setting the table, right, is the human element is so unavoidable. Like, business is business, and you have to do things that are rigorous and fit into boxes and complement each other. And you need a technical co-founder, and you need a salesperson that's better in front of people. And yes, you need an evangelist and somebody that's a little bit more rigorous and operational and is really good at math versus somebody really good at creativity. But we're human, and being human sometimes sucks, and it's got its ups and downs. And so you cannot avoid the soft element of, how about a basic thing, right? As co-founders, is it a requirement to like each other?
Great
Absolutely. You
question.
have to like each other as people, basic fundamental things. And it's like, okay, we may not always be friends because we're going to establish this kind of relationship, but like, you're spending so much time with one another that you need to be cognizant of all of those things. Like, I need to like you as a person to be a co-founder,
Mm,
because if I don't, then that could start something very, very deeply rooted. Even though, yes, you're a rock star, and I think that like you could crush it at whatever you do, and on paper this may look good, but it's those X factor things that you just can't measure, right? So
yeah.
I'll kick it off by saying, one, as co-founders, you need to like each other. And then, to one of your earlier points, having that long-term established vision and a shared vision toward a mission that's greater than the sum of the individual day-to-day parts that you're going to be
Mm,
battling through on a day-to-day basis, that becomes very, very critical to sustaining that kind of relationship with somebody long-term. Because you're not talking about a 3-year goal, right? I
yeah,
mean, co-founders, if you want to do something big, you're talking about a decade-long commitment, right? How many
absolutely.
people do you kind of like get into business with, and you're like, hey man, we're going to be doing this, and this is a 10-year play. So it's like, I don't know, whatever kind of like quick exit, like nobody knows, but anything at minimum, you're looking at something very audacious. You're looking at a decades long kind of endeavor. So you better like that person. You better like one another, and start there.
Okay, so you heard it here, folks. You have to like each other, right? Absolutely, completely agree with you. But you know, this whole conversation about a decade, right, is a force filter because not everyone can actually make a commitment for a decade. So already, if you have someone who says, absolutely, 1 decade, we're doing it, minimum, right? It it speaks to the fact that you're aligned and embarking on a journey with the right partner, right? So that's the first thing, likability, right? You have to like each other. So the foundation to that journey, moving on, the foundation to that journey, or another foundation, so you spoke about the first pillar. The second pillar is this shared, and we've heard it time and time again in the podcasts, in the books, in the masterclasses, the shared values and mutual trust, right? And trust is this, it's this invisible thread, right? That holds that fabric together of a co-founder relationship intact, right? And it's this type of magic. It's not a type of magic that materializes overnight, right? There's no potion, there's no secret recipe, right? It's just something that needs to be built, right? And that trust is that heartbeat. It's the soul. It's the cornerstone of that robust partnership. But how do you build trust?
Yeah, that's foundational to absolutely
Mm.
any co-founder relationship. But obviously,
Or any relationship?
trust,
Any
any
relationship.
relationship for that matter, right? Because especially if you are in a co-founder relationship, usually one of the more successful factors is when you've known each other for a while, and then you start a business together, right? Like, I would start a business with you in a heartbeat, just because we have like such a tenured relationship, and we've known each other for like 20 plus years. We know that we're both competent. We've done, tech startups before. We've managed people. We're leaders. I know that you could work a room, you can rock a room, you could blow the socks off anybody in an auditorium, things like that, that are just like, yeah, like trust is inherently there. And that just, that takes time to build. But obviously, like, trust from a relationship standpoint, the relationship, the X factors that I mentioned earlier, that's almost separate from the competency factors, right?
Mm,
Because you also have to kind of like dial in on the other things. It's like, yes, I trust you as a friend. I trust you to basically, and I'm just using, an arbitrary example here. I trust you to not lie to me, or to be honest with me, and I'm taking everything that you say at face value. And then there's kind of like the friends that you have that like you've known and been drinking buddies with since like college. But then it's like, do I trust you to run kind of like a whole division of my organization? Maybe not, right? So
Yeah.
there's a competence factor, right? So you can trust the individual, the more humane factors, but then can you trust another individual based on kind of the competency matrix, right?
Yeah.
Are there things that need to be done from a job requirement standpoint? And does this person have those skill sets, whether they be hard or soft skill sets to get this done? Have you done these things before? Then it comes to like pedigree, perception, provenance, those three P's that I feel like tends to build trust a little bit more astutely than kind of some of the other factors that you're not cognizant of.
Okay, you said that really quickly. Pedigree.
Pedigree, provenance, and I already forgot. I was just so in the moment.
I love that. That was so good.
Oh my God. I was so in the moment. I don't even know what I said like 30 seconds ago.
You were in flow.
Yeah, I was completely 100% dialed in, but yeah,
Okay.
whatever it
Okay.
was,
Okay.
it
Cool.
sounded good in the moment.
Hey there, we're taking a quick break from the show to let you know that if you'd like to invite Dhiren or Nikos to speak at your next event on topics ranging from emergence and the inner game to the future of AI, we've got you covered. Simply email us at info@emergencenowpod.com. Once again, that's info@emergencenowpod.com. Now, let's dive back to the show.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, I think the process to me, and I completely agree with everything you said. The process to me is about just consistency, right? Consistent actions and intentions. And maybe that's where I'm coming from my journey, right? It's those small things, right? Showing up, following through, right? Even when it's not easy to have conversations, having those conversations, that builds trust, right? And I think trust really grows over time, right? It's in the soil of reliability and honesty that trust really, flourishes. So I may not see eye to eye with you, and that's okay, right? We can debate, challenge each other's perspectives. But if my co-founder passionately is pushing an idea, right, and I don't agree with it, in those moments, trust can kick in. Even if I don't quite grasp it at first, I trust you enough that you've thought it through, right? And if you're really passionate about this idea, right, and that keeps that momentum going, right? And in the previous episode, we were talking about how are decisions made by co-founders when there's no alignment, right? And I think it really is built on that trust. Is if you feel really passionate about it, let's push forward. So trust is like this bridge, right? You have to build a bridge, and it's one step at a time. There are no shortcuts. There's no fast track. A strong foundation is key. And there are cases where people have not known each other. I've had partners where I haven't known each other directly, but I know someone who this person knows, and that relationship is, a relationship that has stood the test of time. So there's a third person that has really brought us together, right? And I've had a lot of success in those relationships because, trust was almost, was present in day one because of this common person that we both knew.
Yeah, absolutely. Just getting a solid reco
Yeah.
is really good through another person that you trust. So that totally makes sense.
Okay, so that's trust, right? And shared values.
Yeah, Dhiren, you also mentioned shared values, which was also very important, and we shouldn't overlook that as well, right? So this isn't necessarily the mission itself, because that's a whole conversation, is having a shared mission, and that becomes greater than the relationship, greater than the co-founding relationship in itself, right? But shared values, when you say shared values, I almost look at that as ways of working, your principled effort in achieving that goal. So it could be like a philosophical way of operating. It could be more strategic. Are you strategically aligned from that perspective? But when I look at values and principled values, are your intentions aligned such that you're a good person and you want to do good things for humanity, right? Because you may have some ethical boundaries that you want to address, and you may be misaligned in a certain approach that you have. And that's where shared values really kicks in, right? And so you really need to operate at this fundamental level where you share those values in a way that's going to get you to the goal, but know that you're not going to compromise your own individual values as a result. So yeah, I think that one is very, very critical. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's something that I've started. I've started discussing shared values, or my values and my clients' values, in my coaching journey or my coaching practice. First session, within the first 10 minutes, we're talking about values. Here are my values. What are yours? Right? And having that as the frame for, or the foundation for the relationship, because now I know what you value and you know what I value. And so now automatically we're having a very high level of connection, because we understand where that overlap is, and individually what's important to each of us. And I can't tell you how impactful that approach has been in the practice. Just starting off with values and being really clear on what those are is paramount.
So let's double click on this, just because I feel like it is so relevant and resonant to everything that we're seeing in the tech space right now. And I can't help but bring it up again, because we see shared values start to unravel at the seams because of what we saw with OpenAI. And you're seeing kind of the divergence and the duplicity of the business versus the nonprofit when purpose and passion tend to kind of coincide. It's a great thing when they overlap, but not such a great thing when they come head to head with one another. You have the mission of the nonprofit, which is to align AGI with human values and move toward AGI in a very responsible and a humane way, come into conflict with the profits of the business when you need to raise shareholder value, right? The whole point of a nonprofit is that you don't have a stakeholder group that's saying, we need profit, we need money, we want to drive revenues through this thing. But now you have kind of these two entities that are kind of coming head to head with one another in conflict of those values. And you're seeing it exacerbated in this very global world stage with very, very high key players. So I just want to highlight that, because, even the best of breed tend to get into these types of conflicts, even though the intention is set from the very beginning. We know one thing is going to be constant in this world, and that is change is inevitable. And you need to be able to adapt to these changes. And sometimes the old potted plants need to find some new soil in order to grow. And obviously, these are some entities that have kind of grown apart from each other in whatever form, which is why they need to recap, assign a new board, change the leadership structure, change governance from all of those perspectives. So very, very interesting to kind of peel the layers back on that from a business case standpoint with respect to shared values and the mission.
Yeah, you said this in a previous episode. You said, write down how you feel about something today, whatever it may be, right? And revisit it a month from now. A month from now, you're not the same person. So what you wrote down may not even resonate with you anymore. So to your point about shared values, I think revisiting shared values periodically and making sure that there's still alignment, right? Or there's recalibration to any shifts that may have taken place is critical. Great point. Okay. The third pillar is around communication and conflict resolution. So inevitably, communication breakdowns and disagreements are going to happen in any relationships, especially in those relationships that are surrounded by high pressure, right? A high pressure environment of a startup. So what are the strategies to ensure that communication remains open, more importantly, fluid, and how do you resolve conflict constructively to ensure that, if we disagree, we use those as opportunities for growth rather than a source of division? So these two elements, communication and conflict resolution, are particularly significant, right, in the intense high stakes environment of startups. So when they crop up due to diverse perspectives, external pressures, right? We just saw it recently in, right in front of us, right? The biggest story in tech. How do you actually deal with those kind of situations, right? How do you remain open in your communication? How are you fluid, and how do you resolve conflict?
Yep. That one is super interesting. Again, we can go back to OpenAI. We get a sense that Sam
Such a case
Altman,
study, right?
Ilias,
It's such a
whatever,
case study.
it's on everything that we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
It's like, because it created such this public manifestation of the inner workings of what was not going well with respect to core values, mission, alignment, communication, and just how Sam Altman was brought in and fired by the board and was kind of taken by surprise. He didn't see it coming whatsoever. Microsoft didn't see it coming whatsoever, and everybody realized that that was the wrong move as this started to happen, because of the fact that the board had been aligned on a certain mission, and then Sam's endeavors started to come in conflict with that mission. But should that have happened behind closed doors before they actually like pulled the plug on certain things? Absolutely. We see that now. And could the board have been more communicative with respect to more alignment and kind of airing things out? Yeah, it would have probably saved them billions of dollars in both shareholder partnership and employee morale value, right? Even the things that can't be measured. So yes, absolutely. Communication is key to all of those things. And we touched on it in a previous mini episode, in that you have to remain vigilant about a public front and work all of those issues out. And then only when you are aligned, or maybe you communicate that misalignment to the public, and that becomes kind of the first stepping stone toward a process that either you need to part ways, or you need to make a change, or you need to change your governance structure. But that needs to be handled in sequence relative to that misalignment, right? And so communication just plays such a key role in this. I can think of other examples in previous co-founding relationships where somebody just doesn't speak out because there's kind of like a power dynamic in which there's either like a very, very senior person, more tenured leader from that perspective, and trust, and that person just does not learn to speak out against that leader and say, you don't want to disagree with them. But I think healthy disagreements are great. I know many times where I've disagreed with senior leaders when I was in the room, when I was a little bit more junior, and I've just done it in such a way that wasn't combative. Again, it's based on personality. There are some leaders that are egotistical, and they don't create that growth. But me as a leader, I would want my team to come to me and say, yeah, Nikos, you're not seeing this. Let me present a case and build a case. And I'm more open to that, right? So lots of different things there, but communication is key to the center of all of these different things.
Yeah, but I'm going to push back a bit and say, so you have that level of self-awareness. So you probably encourage people in your team to come to you and say, Nikos, you're not seeing this accurately, right? But not everyone has that level of self-awareness, right?
Sure.
There are founders and entrepreneurs that I know that have surrounded themselves with yes men, right? And those yes men, the resistance to tell their founder or their direct line, right, that they're not seeing things accurately, that resistance comes from the fact that they feel they're going to be judged. That's the reality. If I feel like you're not going to take my feedback, right, constructively, or if I'm showing you a perspective that's not aligned with your vision, I don't know what my future is going to be, or I don't know how I'm going to be perceived in the organization. That can be a really unsafe space to be in.
Yeah.
Another point I wanted to mention is this whole notion of, the personal is connected to the professional, right? So keeping these channels open means active listening. It means empathy. It means understanding that life outside of business can affect what happens within it, right? Because we are multidimensional. We are not just only entrepreneurs, right? We have other roles that we play. I'll share a personal anecdote. So when I faced a family loss, my business partner at that time stepped in without hesitation, right? And he had that level of empathy and understanding that made all the difference for our partnership. And I was very open. I said, look, this has happened. We've had a family loss. I'm not going to be able to play an operational role for, the foreseeable future. Those were my words, foreseeable future. I did not have a timeline.
Sure.
And he stepped in and stepped up. And our friendship, was key, but it was that open communication and really being very fluid in communicating what's happening in our personal life. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs keep the personal life, away from the business, which I can see merits to that, but there is a lot of overlap, right? And it's incredibly important to keep that flowing in both directions.
100%. Yeah. How do you feel about being misaligned? I mean, obviously you need to have kind of a broader mission at the core of things, and that's when it goes beyond the relationship. And we talked about communication as a factor, but what if there are can you think of examples where there are fundamental strategic examples of like misalignment, but then co-founders kind of went through it anyway, even though they fundamentally disagreed? And what were the results of that business?
So disagreements in terms of strategy or a hiring decision, it really all depends. I mean, what is the decision that needs to be made? And I think from a personal experience, what I would say is, and we spoke about this in previous episodes, when there's clarity on what my responsibility is, what I'm accountable for, and if you trust me to make that decision, even if we're not aligned, right? And a decision has to be made, it's important to be able to say, okay, I trust you, right? That you are making this decision based on all the information that you have, and it's based on what is best for the business, right? Because we're going to make wrong decisions all the time. It's just part of business, right? It's part of the journey.
Yeah, Dhiren, that's totally true. I could think of one example with a co-founding team that I have where we had a fundamental difference in kind of the business model at which we operate, right? Especially in the AI space, where the core of the revenues coming in were a service-based business, but we know that long-term we want a software business because that has the multiples, that has the 10x, the 100x, the 1000x. And so it's two fundamentally core different things in strategy, right? When you're allocating service, it becomes about people, and you could talk about augmented intelligence and what that entails. Software requires something very, very different, and it requires, more both OpEx and CapEx upfront in terms of that initial investment, where the return is going to be a lot longer. So these are two fundamental things that need to be kind of rectified at the very beginning, right? And so you kind of have two very viable options, because in the short term you're kind of getting revenues, and getting revenues in the door is absolutely good and awesome. But if you want that big exit, then you have to invest in the software side of the business. And so the answer is, maybe sometimes you're forced to pick one or the other, and it ends up not being a good decision, but sometimes you just have to go with both and then make some hard decisions and sacrifices where you have to kind of contain it within this very principled strategy. And then in the long term, you find creative ways to get what you want. And then you start to find alignment as a result of that, right? So that's a long-winded way of saying the things that you feel at first may oppose one another are essentially two heads of the same coin, and you need to constantly accept both of these seemingly opposing positions, and then something new, something emergent will come
Emergence.
out of it.
Beautiful.
Emergence.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. So uh, we we were getting into this phase wherein we had to give, and it was an incentive misalignment or a misalignment on incentives. And I was, on the side of giving an increment to the team, specifically the sales team. They had not been performing, but my view was that if we give them an incentive, right? And what I mean by incentive is if we raise their compensation and increase bonus, right? This is going to drive them to perform and take their performance to the next level, right? While my business partner had a completely diametrical opposite view of this situation, wherein they felt that if we haven't hit profitability, and if we increase compensation and bonus, right, that's just going to accelerate the burn. Completely misaligned in terms of how to approach this. And I saw it in a different way, which is inevitably we're going to get to that point wherein if the team is not motivated because we haven't fundamentally addressed a core issue, then we're going to get to that point of burn anyway, right? Here, we may be accelerating it, but you're actually increasing the probability that you get performance, right? Because now you're making a commitment to the team, right? In spite of the circumstances at hand. And they could potentially see that as it could be a move that really rallies the team to do whatever it takes. Yeah. Okay. So just to round this up, from a conflict perspective, open communication, keeping it fluid is absolutely crucial, right? Now, the fourth pillar is something around money. It's cultivating the money mindset, right? So now this is often overlooked, but an essential pillar. Alignment on the money mindset is key, right? Because, money mindset is not just about dollars and cents. It's a fundamental factor that can significantly influence a founder's journey. So I was recently working with a client who was working on their pricing, and they were looking to increase their price for all products in their portfolio, all of it, right? And one of them found this to be really, really challenging. Although the inflation in the market was evident and all their competitors and suppliers were raising their prices, he was really challenged by this. So when we peel the layers, his money mindset was tied to the belief that he wasn't good enough. It wasn't about the product or market dynamics. It was about his relationship with money, because he felt he wasn't good enough. He felt he didn't deserve to increase his prices. So this is absolutely crucial for all founders to get alignment on. So while understanding your numbers is vital, there's no doubt about it, right? But when you're part of a founding duo, chances are there are two distinct money mindsets at play. One might be a saver, always looking to tuck away for a rainy day. The other could be a spender, driven to invest and expand. I gave you the example earlier where I wanted to do the incentives, right? But my partner didn't, because he had a saver mindset, while I had a spender mindset, right? I was looking to invest and expand. But these differences can lead to friction if not addressed. So money can be a sensitive topic, right? It's often swept under the rug.
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like you do fall into one of those two categories, especially when it comes to business. But I think the transcendent quality there is nobody's going to disagree that more money in the business is better than less money in the business. And so you're just going to have to kind of align on, okay, well, let's find out what the knobs and levers are here. And let's agree that we need more income coming in and make certain sacrifices, whether that's saving or doubling down on a particular investment strategically in which the business may grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to round off this money mindset pillar. So we inherit our money mindset from our parents unknowingly, right? We're carrying these beliefs into our business and we don't even know it, right? And these conflicts can sneak up on you as founders, right? That's why discussing your money mindset openly and honestly is crucial. But let's be real. Asking someone, hey, Nikos, can we have a chat about our money mindset over coffee? It might not yield the best results, right? So we've got to reframe it as a finance meeting, right? Which can make all the difference. So it's an important conversation to have. I've been in situations where I've had a partner who was a total spender in his personal life, right? Total spender, which then cascaded into the business. I'd never spoken about what the money mindset was, right? Where was he coming from? What was his relationship like with money? And it caused a lot of friction in
Totally.
our partnership, right? So shifting the conversation can alleviate some of this pressure around money talk. It's not always easy, but it's absolutely necessary. So the bottom line with money mindset is, it shapes decision making, it influences partnerships, and it impacts the growth trajectory of a business. So have that conversation on money mindset. It's absolutely crucial. All right. So the last pillar is all about your personal vision versus your business vision. So we all have our personal vision. Those dreams that, that are close to our hearts, right? But what about in the business? There's this whole other vision that meshes with your co-founders, right? And it's like trying to juggle dreams, yours and theirs, all while building trust, right? So are you chasing, it's important to understand, are you chasing a lifestyle business or is it about growth and expansion for you? So really having a clear understanding on the personal vision and how it relates to the business's vision. And when you keep those personal versions, right, of the vision locked away in the attic, it creates this friction, misalignment. And trust me, that's a ticket to tension within co-founder led businesses.
Yeah, 100%. I could think of multiple examples where you have a very strong, competent CEO, but he tends to do things in such a way that just amplifies his own brand and personal evangelism platform. And that often definitely comes into compromise with respect to the broader mission of the business itself. So whenever you have a megalomaniac type CEO or others, and I could think of numerous examples, and it's interesting because Elon, he's not a megalomaniac, but a lot of people perceive him to be that way. But it's just I don't know if you've read his biography yet, but it definitely starts to strike a different chord, and some can perceive him as such. But look at what he's created. And it's a personal style, but that he's super, super introverted, right? And he's not just about it for himself, but people perceive him on X and his comments like that. So it's interesting how it rubs people off kind of the wrong way, even though it comes from someplace else. I know other co-founders that are 100% in it for the glory and the fame and the vanity and things like that. But it's how you operate and what you intend often is, comes into compromise with how people perceive it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that tension is real, right? When there's a misalignment between, who you are, your personal vision versus the vision of the business, if they don't sync up, it's like watching a game of tug of war, right? And I think that's what's been happening with Elon, right? Or at least from our vantage point, there's this tug, right? Back and forth between the personal vision and the vision of the business.
And sometimes that's hard to separate, because the personal vision, especially when you come from a founder or a co-founder that has grown the business, it's intricately tied and embedded to that business, that the business has the co-founders or founders DNA all over it, that sometimes it's difficult to separate.
Yeah, absolutely. In one of my earlier ventures, I was at that stage where I had a young family. So I was balancing business and family. And in the business, I was focused on operations and finance, right? While my partner he was the sultan of sales, right? This exceptional, you know, um, this exceptional executive when it came to sales, right? And I was trying to build a sustainable business, right? I wanted to invest back into the business while my partner was single and was at a different stage in his life. So our personal vision and the business vision were, you know, were all over the map, right? There was no alignment. So there was different energies in the room that was very evident. It was like this elephant in the room because there was no alignment. Fast forward a few years later, I had a business that was really capital intensive. And my horizon for this business was 3 years, while my partner's time horizon was 10 years, right? Super long time horizon. You're talking about a decade earlier. This was one of those decade ventures, right? Committed for a decade.
I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Quick sidebar. I'm going to throw an inside joke your way. Deep Sharma's time horizon is 10,000 years.
Wow.
All right. So I'll just plant that seed.
And for
going.
the viewers, or for the viewers and the listeners, who is Deep Sharma?
Deep Sharma is my co-founder at Dial In.
Right. So I wanted to accelerate. So because I had a 3-year time horizon and he had a 10-year time horizon, I wanted to accelerate growth while they wanted to take it slow and steady. So I wanted to see ROI within 3 years, while 3 years was not important to them, right? And it created tension, and it was real. So it's important to understand what do you want from your business and how does it align with your personal vision? And having that conversation with your co-founder is absolutely essential. Not sharing your personal vision out of the gate can create misalignment. So to recap the pillars we discussed, the first is you have to like each other, right? It's important to like the person that you're building a business with. The second pillar was around communication and conflict resolution. The third was cultivating a money mindset. And the last was personal vision versus business vision, and having that alignment, being very clear on what your personal vision is and sharing that with your founder. So the success of a business often hinges on the strength of co-founder relationships, right? By nurturing trust, fostering open communication, embracing that flexibility, prioritizing mutual support, it helps you really navigate the complexities of entrepreneurship, because it can be a really challenging journey, right? So join us next time for more insights and discussions on the world of startups and innovation. Before we wrap this up, Nikos, do you have anything that you would like to share?
No, that's it. Just stay aligned and stay audacious and ambitious, my friends.
I love that. All right. Till next time, stay emergent as well.
Thank you for tuning in to Emergence Now, where we explore the emerging trends, technologies, and ideas that are shaping our world today for you to discover yourself. We hope you enjoyed this episode and gained valuable insights that you can apply in your own life. If you want to stay up to date with our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media, where we share additional content, engage with our community, and keep the conversation going. Thanks again for listening to Emergence Now, and we hope you'll join us for the next episode.